OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 416, Under a Pastel Hood. So what do you call these little ones? They're certainly friendly, Ardan asks as he feeds bit of the jerky to the scampy, bouncing at his feet. He's crouched down now, and as no one is talking to him, paying much more attention to the small gathering of little animals. They're called scampy. The Vishan don't know where they came from, but they're more or less omnipresent in the Ark ships. They're hermaphrodites, so if just two of them get into a ship, then you have an entire infestation in no time. Not that they're dangerous. They don't damage ship components and they don't bite or carry disease. So they're more regarded as semi-wild pets. Harold calls over. Did your Vishan wife tell you that? Yes, she did. And where is she now? On Scathach, with my other wives and the Whimper's Primal, possibly bad-mouthing me. With the way you act, there's no possible about it. How do humans get so crazy? Ch.416 says in a mocking tone as he gives the giant monster he's standing on a little rub. Love of life, kid. You only get one usually and shouldn't waste it. What do I tell my ancestors when I go to the big cloning facility in the sky? That I sat around, did nothing, and was the same as a basic labor drone? Okay, I know you're being all semi-spiritual about it, but a big cloning facility in the sky? Really? Just, really? What, I'm a clone. I own it. Big Bro is so awesome they mass-produced him and worked to improve on the baseline. What do you think I am? A defective model? Ardan asks. That actually hurt a little, Harold says, and Ch.416 starts chuckling. I mean, I thought we were just playing around. Cut it out, kid. Kid, I've had tantrums that have lived longer than you, Ardan says before putting a hand over his mask. Wow, I should not have said that. Probably not, but it's out there. How do you keep doing this? I'm on your side, by the way. Talent? And it doesn't matter what side you're on, you get the full Harold show. Sounds like a porno, Ch.416 snipes. You'd know, kid. Unlike you, I actually get some. Dude, that's only a burn with humans and only on Earth. Yeah, that was my screw-up. Among many others, Ardan sasses before sighing. Stop doing that. Hey, come on, I'm just setting them up. It's you that's taking the shot. Stop making such good targets. No. This is what we've been afraid of. This is Subject Mirror, the dangerous operative that can see through our stealth? Dob asks. Yes, Harold states. Really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Ch.416 asks. Scene change. Vishan loyalist. Is there any way to tell him to tone it down? He's on our side and distracting us. Admiral Fallows states in exasperation. He is toning it down. He's using nonviolent means to distract and isn't simply beating up every Vishan he can find and tying them up. Torment says, What did I send you girls into? Chaos, Torment replies. Now, what do you want? Spread the teleportation beacons. They're related to the sorcerers of Apuk legend, right? A living axiom community where both the whole and the individual are capable of thought and using axiom? Correct. All right. Spread it and can I help you, little one? Why are you here? Admiral Fallows asks as she looks down to Peter Paletail. Do you think I'm cute? Peter asks. I think that's not involved or relevant to anything at all right now, she says in a confused tone, not admitting that the child does have a certain cast to his face that makes her want to stroke his cheeks. Why did you even ask that? Good answer. I'm one of the sorcerers. I'm spreading the mushroom version of the forest called the Bright Forest. Our version can work as kinetic armor too. The dark forest can work as thermal armor, but isn't up to taking coil shot or rail shot. The lush forest fights against chemical weapons and things like that. And the astral forest is the only one that can survive in space for extended periods. Did all that make sense? There are some undaunted part of the Bright Forest right now, and these are the words they use, but yeah, that made perfect sense, and it was very useful, young man. But why are you here? I have a Vishan friend, and I want to help. I've been told that so long as I stay well behind friendly battle lines and return to the Bright Forest the second a weapon is pointed my way, then no one will complain. How long have you known this friend? 4 hours, maybe more? Really? She asks and looks around. One of the soldiers is looking a little nervous. Seek imperceptible truths. How did you befriend a juvenile axiom adept in 4 hours? I don't know, ma'am, Seek replies. He just bonded with me. If I may speak freely? By all means. The bright forest sorcerers, the ones that default to it at least, I understand that they can switch forests. They're children, ma'am. Not all naturally children, but Peter here is possibly the most mature and developed of the bright forest sorcerers. Ma'am, they've undergone what we fear. Some remember clearly, others don't. But the very memory of what happened to them has been denied to many of them. Ma'am, they're us. Incredible power, horrible abuse, but they've accepted help and they're doing better. Seek imperceptible truths, says, and Admiral Fallows nods. Do you have the details? Some. There is a great deal of legal nonsense going on blocking investigation. It's not that hard to get past it, but it is somewhat annoying, Seek states. It's not a good time now to investigate it, ma'am. Fair. These expansions of your forest, how long will they live on the Ark ships? So long as they're invested in, it's usually not worth it to do that, and attention fades away over time. According to one of the guys actively spreading the mold through this ship, the vast majority is gone within 3 days unless something interesting is happening. Interesting to whom? The forest. And things are only interesting if there's something a forest wants there. Lots of sunlight, good soil, water access. Things plants need to live. Okay, so cleaning things will take them away. Good to know. What about the astral forest? I don't know, it's the youngest and we don't fully know, Peter says before shrugging. Can you, stop looking at me so, much? It's kinda... Sorry. Scene change. Vishan rebels. Reinforced boot crashes into hull plating as she marches forward, refusing to look weak, refusing to step aside, and refusing to be afraid. Grand Admiral Destiny is no one's coward and knows what is best for the Vishan people. She is certain of this. She rounds the corner and finds an Apakteen giving her an odd look as he reclines on the meat of a gigantic aquatic monstrosity. Somehow fitting on a puddle he spilled into the ship. Hello? He asks in galactic trade, clearly giving away that he can see through the natural stealth and gifts of the Vishanyan. She snaps her hood back into place. If she is going to be seen, it will be on her terms and no other. Hello, miss. I'm going to call that Peach. Miss Peach Vishanyan lady? Wait, is that a rank insignia? Harold, turn around. I see her. I think we got a big one, Harold says before diving into the Scathach Ocean and vanishes beneath the water. Dude, I'm only in control of 5 of the Leviathans. There's a damn army down, Derchar starts to exclaim before Harold pops up on the other side and then climbs out of the water to stand on the water. So that's an Admiralty rank, isn't it? Are you Bleed or Destiny? How much do you know? Assume I know everything, up to and including that private thought currently running through the back of your... Harold begins and she draws her pistol on him, and his left hand grabs it in a crushing grip and forces it to face away from them. Unless you want this coil toy to pierce the wall and potentially hit some equipment or poor soul in the room next to us, I suggest you put it away. Her reply is a punch to the gut, and he vaguely moves with it. It might have been him breathing, though. Ma'am, I am not your enemy. Calm down and... You have not only trespassed in restricted areas, but you have invaded our ship, brought forth immense danger and... Are you or are you not an admiral? Harold cuts her off. She grabs him around the neck, and he grabs her wrist and forces her hand off. Lady, I am being very, very polite here. I feel like I must remind you that I am one of the 3 greatest advocates for your species. And seeing as my competition are literally objects of worship, I feel it's fair to say I should not be counted as an enemy. At all, Harold says sternly. Now for the last time. Are you an admiral? Do you think you scare me? She hisses at him and he narrows his eyes and locks his gaze with hers. His empty eyes seem to stretch inwardly, an impossible distance, as her own eyes widen. She flinches back and away and then rallies to attack. Everything happens at once. Harold's fist slams into her gut, and the axiom he pulls knocks her out as Derchar slips into the water with his enormous friend ducking down. The dust starts growing, not into grass, but into thick choking bushes that drink from the water that Derechar has brought to grow thick and vibrant, even without soil and blocks. All views even as Harold dives back himself and the entire corridor is cut off. Scene change. Vishanyan loyalists. Harold Derechar and Ardan Karm reappear among the Vishanyan. So, did I call it? Is this one of our admirals? Yes, that's Destiny, Admiral Fallows states as she walks up. By the way, nice to finally meet you in person, ma'am. Thanks again for ordering Velocity to seduce me. It worked out well on both sides. I suppose some gentle ribbing is the best I can expect, Admiral Fallows says. So? Think they'll fall for it twice? Derechar asks as he grabs a hoodie out of nowhere, and he puts it on. Backwards at first, and then needs to turn it around to reveal that it's a Bone Chewer Regoring series hoodie. Not likely, and I thought your name was the Leviathan Lord. The Bone Chewer is my father. He hates the Regoring series. If he rolls his eyes any harder at the sight of these, he'll roll them out of his head entirely, Derechar says proudly. And how many of those do you have? Harold asks. Enough that even if I were a germaphobe, I can still wear it straight for a month. Where'd you get the scratch for that? Discarded Leviathan teeth sell really well on the open market. Even a tiny one can easily get me 200 credits for it. Big ones from specific beasts? They go by the pound and the prices are in the thousands. My future is set, at least until Leviathan ivory stops being in fashion. Kunam, Leviathan ivory is so valuable that there was a minor war on Soben Ride over a particularly large piece. Ardan Karm says, and Derechar slowly turns to him with a big smile. You find me the customers and I'll split it 50-50. I suppose I would like to buy my own house with pocket change, Ardan Karm says, before raising up his mask and looking to Harold. On an unrelated note, how much is a pop gun? Kid, you have to have the blueprints by now. Why not make your own? Because there's something about straight up buying something. But making it yourself has so much more to recommend to it, Harold counters. Before this keeps going, can I have the traitorous Admiral now? I'd like to know why the actual hell she's done this, Admiral Fallows asks. Oh, right, Harold says, turning to the side and passing Admiral Destiny over. Can I be there for the interrogation, or do you want me back in the ship? I don't think I can bait them twice, but I can keep distracting if you'd like. I think we need to keep you somewhere else so that you don't confuse normal girls. Not to mention, I doubt that Bleed will respond with anything but mass violence from here on out. To be fair, I can easily grab her if needed. Thank you, but no, Admiral Longitude states as she walks up. We need to speak about what you know about the OOCS incoming responses to us. Of course. Is there any place in particular you would like to speak, or do you want this to be open? Open. Now what do the OOCS want? What many OOCS want is blood for the attack. What the Empress wants is a long-term, mutually beneficial bargain, but to get that, you will need to ceremoniously surrender. What? Wait, is the Empress going to offer the Warblade? Ardan Karm asks. Offer the Warblade? It used to be offer the blade before... Right, basically, it's a formal way of asking if you really honestly want to fight. If you kneel and put your weapons down, then you're surrendering, and by tradition, negotiations then begin. The Empress will not be allowed to attack or allow attack if it's her offering you the Warblade, and that... I mean, it's been a while, but it's an old tradition designed to stop noble houses from wiping each other out. It's an acknowledgement of one side's absolute dominance compared to the other, and how combat between the two will not be honorable, Ardan Karm explains. So I can completely avert combat with the OOCS with this ceremony? Yes, but only if it's followed by bargaining in good faith. Trying to subvert or take advantage of this will mean that she's morally obligated to crush you. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 417. Under a pastel hood. I know you just woke up. You can stop faking, Admiral Longitude says, and Destiny straightens up and starts glaring. Yeah, the long necks really don't help you girls like that. There's a huge number of little twitches that happen when you get ready to move them. Harold notes. Thank you, Mr. Jameson. You're welcome, Miss Longitude. She just turns to look at him, even as Destiny straightens up and Harold shrugs. So, you really have surrendered to alien powers and given up Vishanyan sovereignty for convenience. Oh, right on the attack. It's a great idea to put people on the defensive. Harold notes and Destiny just turns to him. Hi, I'm here to keep you off balance and ensure you don't get control of the conversation. And why would you tell me that? Because it puts you further off balance and on the lookout for everything I do, distracting you, keeping you off balance, and keeping control of the conversation out of your grip. Harold says, what? That's insane. No, what's insane is that I've told you exactly what I'm doing and you're still falling for it. People don't have much defense against blatant honesty, Harold remarks. Oh, you're insane. Got it. Well, I'm in good company then. What the hell made you think that launching a coup right as your species gets exposed was a good idea? If there was ever a moment for Vishanyan unity, it's now. Harold replies. Harold, this is my interrogation. Admiral Longitude reminds him. Sorry. Now choosing our own destiny. What is your motivation? We already captured an interrogated signal. We have determined she has slipped into a paranoid spiral and is no longer fit for service. Are you similarly hurt, or is there some other form of motivation for why you have placed Vishanyan life under such risk with your recklessness, to say nothing of your treachery? My treachery? I see you're projecting hard, Destiny snarls as she looks around the room. Look at this. Look! Less than a half dozen ARC ships? Our numbers in the tens of thousands. How can we be anything if we don't have the numbers? The munitions? You want to know why I'm doing this? It's because in the excess of fucking caution, you're going to slowly strangle us all. Our numbers should double every decade at minimum, but we've barely grown by 10% in 10 years. We have the knowledge and capacity. I choose my name for a reason, and I only regret not having the resources to launch this coup years ago. Your cowardice will smother us all. Really, Harold? You let her rant? Did you hear her tone? If she had a giant sign pointing down at her and saying insane, she still wouldn't have looked more crazy. Is there anyone in this room that agrees with her? Anyone at all? Well, she did sound pretty convinced, Dershar notes. Does she need a nap? Peter Wine asks. Anyone at all? Has that convinced anyone even slightly? Perhaps aroused some curiosity? Because I have questions after that rant. Harold states, what could you possibly have to ask? My agreement and part of the coup is simple. We need to expand. We need to grow. I was stopped and stymied by Longitude and her circle every time I push for expansion and development. We need more girls. We need more ships and everything. We need more than just the ARC ships. We need proper stations and shipyards. We need entire worlds. But we don't know where the makers are. That's the problem. We're still building the expertise to understand our own genetic sequence. How did you and Signal manage to stand each other? Her points that were valid directly contradict the validity in your own. She's just a useful fool, much like how you treat your thug bombard in your pawn duty. So you're resorting to insults now? You do know that's a general sign that you're losing an argument but don't want to admit it, Harold says. And your pointless distractions don't change the fact that I am correct. Our position is frail. We need to expand. We need an entire moon covered in cannons pointed directly at the exit to our laneway. Why are we holding back? Whether it's righteous or wretched, we are made for war, and we can't fight if our numbers and equipment are so thin and frail that we are effectively alone and naked. And the fact we have been building up in stealth, trying to do just that while also preventing discovery? Wasting time. Even now, the sheer numbers of the Apuk alone means that they just got at least 10 times our actual numbers in new lives. Every day. We need more. We need fleets of ARC ships dedicated solely to producing Vishanyan by the billions. We need to remake and restore and Claudia has come, and Destiny is at a loss for words. That's enough now. You need to stop, she says in a gentle tone. What in the... Child, you're going to hurt yourself. Think about it, just for a moment if you need to. The APIC have had multiple millennia to build and develop. You're not going to match them with less than a century. No matter how eager, how advanced, or how incredible you may be, it's not enough, Claudia says in a very gentle tone. And what makes you think you have any right to talk to me like that? From the size of you, there's You're that so-called goddess, aren't you? The whole reason we've been exposed. Had I more time, I could have forced proper expansion and development in the Vishanyan. This is your fault. How are your actions the fault of someone that has never so much as spoken to you before? Harold asked. She forced our hand. It was still your hand, and you could have chosen another way. She made it happen. Are you leader or a follower? Why is she suddenly in control of your life? Are you acknowledging the rank of... Harold trails off as Longitude gives him a look that says, stop. I am not... Destiny begins to protest. Enough. The fact of the matter is that, much like Signal, your desires and plans are impractical and are trying to solve a problem without anything even approaching a proper answer. Furthermore, you have missed several important details, and with how poor your judgment has proven, I do not have faith that you can be trusted with command any longer. Are you seriously pretending that there is a normal state of affairs here? At first I thought things were a result of my own failures, but I can actually see that I wasn't entirely correct. Signal was hiding a severe case of paranoia. Whether it was paranoid delusions or not is yet to be determined. But you are simply so impatient that your interactions with Signal have clearly not helped you. Admiral Longitude states. Now, what is Bleed's motivation? Bleed? She wants to be in charge and knows that there's no getting past glorious Admiral Longitude, she who freed us so we could shiver in the shadows, afraid of our own breath as if living and cowering in some dark corner of the galaxy is anything to have. We deserve more. Yes, but why do you need to fight for it? Harold asks. What? Mr. Jameson. Not this time, Admiral. This is something I'm going to be showing the Apoc Empress. Why do you need to fight for your position? I can understand hiding. I condone it. It's a patient, near harmless action that lets you buy time to heal, think, and plan your next action. But rampant expansion in a warfare front will provoke others, has provoked others. And what would you expect us to do? Destiny demands. What your malefactors would fear the most. Think about it. You were made to be secret, abandoned in silence, and left with only questions. Why are you letting that stand? If I were in your position, I would have looked into the neighbors and then started sending them offers. Then when things finally come to a head, reveal myself and use public pressure to force a galactic manhunt on the makers. They want to escape justice, drag them into the courts. They want to forget you, to leave you, become everything they ever feared. Between you and Signal, you've played completely into their hands. You think you're Anyan? Freeborn? No. You've reduced yourself to a Vish, alone. Merely living, Harold explains. Two types of ambition and paranoia. That's your coup. You want the Vishanyan to be powerful to the point that there's no hiding you. And Bleed wants what she feels she is owed, but cannot get with Longitude still alive. There's a lot we can't get with her still alive, Destiny says before giving the Admiral a withering look. We should have just killed you rather than take you prisoner. But Bleed wanted a show. Now we pay for it. Her survival has ensured your own. If I heard about the Vishanyan self-purging, I would have more or less kidnapped everyone involved, interrogated everyone, and purged the fratricidal idiots in your ranks. Which includes you, by the way, Destiny. That bit of mercy on Bleed's part is why you and her are still breathing. And you think you can face us all? Yes, I can. I can face you all on your terms, in your home, with all of you at once. You were very right to watch me. I may be only the second most dangerous being in this room, but I am by far more willing to bring my danger to bear, Harold says, stepping up close to Destiny before he's gently pulled back by Claudia. And as the more dangerous person in the room, I ask that you calm it down a little, young man. We don't have time. The Empress of Serbo is on her way now, with a fleet to either accept the surrender of the Vishanyan or annihilate them. We need all heads of this snake either crushed or cowed, or Admiral Longitude won't be able to properly surrender, and that will mean an enormous loss of Vishanyan life, Harold says, tapping his earpiece. She's on Soben Ride and rallying the forces there. She's making a show of this. She's cementing her place as the protector of the Apoc all over again, and this ends in only two ways. So if you'll excuse me, I don't want to be the ancestor to the entire surviving Vishanyan species. But she is the rule of law, bringer of justice, defender of the Apuk, and their strongest representative. The Apuk are her priority. She likes long-term, stable, and beneficial agreements. It keeps her empire in order, keeps people happy and healthy and wealthy. That's her method. However, she also is one of the most accomplished warriors of her entire species, and she's coming here to deal with a small, belligerent enemy force, showing her strength every step of the way by cashing in favors to move faster than she ever has before. And he puts his finger to his ear as his eyebrows go up. And she's found the laneway. Like I said, we have hours at most. Commander Torment, call in the bounty hunters. I want Bleed tied up at my feet within the hour. Admiral Longitude states, bring in the Undaunted. We're going to have to owe them a favor. But since they're already good friends with the Apuk, that will buy us a little more time and save lives. Admiral Longitude orders before turning back to Destiny. In some ways you are right. We need to expand, and I have been erring on the side of caution, but always to the end of Vishan's safety. I will never regret caring for my people, even the ones that I failed and have failed me in turn. You're really taking all this onto your own shoulders? Harold asks her. You're stretching yourself thin, dear girl, Claudia states. Another mistake you've made is that you haven't delegated enough. You need to let more on your admiralty. Each of us is in control of one of the Ark ships and its accompanying fleet. We're supposed to act as equals to each other. Admiral Fallows is set to lead the next Ark ship. Then the captains under you and commanders. I get that you're all about privacy and such, but you need openness about each other at least. Lack of communication causes resentment more than anything else, Claudia states, to say nothing of just how damn important communication is in military terms. But we need to put that aside for now. If Bleed or one of her lackeys gets in the way of the offer of the Warblade, potential extinction, Longitude says before looking to Torment. Is something slowing things down? We need those hunters here as soon as possible, and the Undaunted. Harold then smiles. Bring everyone. Make it clear, make it plain, make it obvious and strange. Bring Observer Wu, all the great pincers, the reporter, and my wives. The last thing we want is this to be clinical and detached. Make it personal, show everyone that you're already part of the galaxy, including yourselves. Harold says, and Longitude looks at him and slowly grins. Do all your plans bring about maximum chaos? Chaos in the right place is healthy and wholesome. Care for some? He's talked me into it. What about you, Admiral? Bombard states, and Longitude gives off a rueful chuckle. Bring me everyone. When the Empress arrives, we will not stand alone, and we will not find our end, just another new beginning. Under a pastel hood, it was already falling apart. How was this even possible? Longitude and her ilk had been behind desks and out of even routine training since before she popped from her pod. Skills decay with time, and while healing comas restore memories when done correctly, they're still just memories. How could Longitude escape so easily? How was she so effortlessly coordinated with Bombard? The girl had sacrificed herself for Longitude to slip away, and then had her faith returned in minutes. The moment she had been looking for Longitude in the area, she had heard of several of her loyal girls being knocked out. Longitude had freed the others and armed them. She had checked every part of the ship and could only conclude that Longitude had left for another Ark ship, somehow and without a shuttle or portal to get there. The old witch had been stacking the deck the entire time. The whole of her life Bleed had been playing into Longitude's plan. Admiral Bleed, one of our outer patrols, has stopped reporting in. Excuse me? Patrol 13. Delta is no longer reporting in. Their equipment has stopped broadcasting, and they're no longer on camera. Were they attacked? No, thermal readings aren't showing any weapons fire, and there was no hint of anything happening before the camera gave out. Scramble a full team. As of this moment, every camera glitch is to be treated like a full-scale incursion. No exceptions. Every glitch? We have to account for electronic warfare as well, and how many glitches have we had? Every camera, ma'am. Every single one, including the ones I have on you. I assume that it was due to some defect in the cameras itself. She hadn't been able to subvert the security staff on this ship. This was going to be a problem. Do we have out prisoners still? Yes. Good. Have the security staff brought up for interrogation. Use their expertise. Rough them up a little to ensure they're being honest with us. She orders as she starts going over the blueprints again. There had to be something she missed somewhere. How Longitude and her ilk had evaded her for so long was absurd, and there had to be something she was missing. Admiral Bleed, the prisoners are gone. What? The prisoners are gone. Their guards are in their place and tied up. Our security has to be compromised. I can still see them in their cells on screen. Put everyone on full alert. I want a full scrambling of all forces. She commands and the lights of the Ark ship shift, and a chiming sound lets everyone know to go on high alert. That will not help. An unfamiliar male voice says over Tay's speaker system. It's not Subject Mirror. Who are you? I am the one demanding your surrender now. You will come with us to surrender to Admiral Longitude, or you shall be dragged to her. It is your choice. The clipped and stern voice states. It has an accent she can't identify. Will you surrender? The voice asks. I will not. I refuse to be the footnote in someone else's story. I am not going to meekly capitulate merely because someone was here first. I am bleed them dry, and I demand your respect. Very well then. To your sorrow, I agree. You will have my respect. The voice says ominously, and there is a slight chime. To my sorrow? What could you possibly mean by that? She demands, and there is no response. Scene change. Vishanyan loyalists. To your sorrow? Really? Nightwings asks Hafid, who turns to give him a steady look. Really? Yes, really. I assumed you held an appreciation for the dramatic. There's a big difference between dramatic and melodramatic, Nightwing says. Drac, are you sure you have their systems? I think so. The code here is a mess, but straightforward enough if you have an eye for it. So much bloat and unnecessary lines, though. These girls need to learn how to trim the fat. Big time, Drac states. I mean, look at this. We have 10, 15, 23 lines of code I could compress into 3. Oh God, I don't even code, and that looks like raw gibberish. It almost is. This is the most pedantic and detail-obsessed coding I've ever found. A bit of program pruning, and they should seriously increase their computational power without all this mess going through things. Look at these. It systematically checks hundreds of variables, going through the entire sequence each time, rather than checking each of the variables in a single sequence. So much bloat. Okay, so the nerd is doing the nerd things. Who wants to be exciting? Nightwings asks, and Ace holds her hand up, and her tail wags eagerly. Glad to hear it. Where'd Dad get to, Drac? He's disabling weapons and getting me into more and more systems. We have maybe 5 minutes until I can make that ship dance like it's desperate for money, Drac states. Really? Todd challenges. Really, Drac assures him. You are a frightening bunch. Admiral Duty notes. Comes with the territory, ma'am. We face frightening people. Nightwing says cheerfully. Now come on, Ace. Let's fetch ourselves a rebel. Todd, you are with me. We shall draw their eyes. Hafid states calmly, and Todd nods. And what form of distraction is it? We're going non-lethal after all. I got rubber bullets and he has an electrified sword. With a blunt edge, right? Admiral Duty asks. Yes, it's a stun weapon with the same balance as my preferred arms. Hafid notes. Come, brother. If they wish to be fearsome, then we shall respond in kind. The line between drama and melodrama. Find it, brother. Nightwing says cheerfully. Scene change. Vishanyan rebels. They were already on high alert, but something makes them tense further. The sudden sensation that something had just arrived, and they go back to back, all 4 of them with their weapons pointed in different directions and scanning the room for anything. A whisper of axiom, a distortion of heat. An errant crease in the wall paneling. A loose floor panel gets their attention, and they converge around it before the largest of them lifts it, preparing to slam it down as a bludgeon against anything that might jump out. Empty. The atmospheric venting, fluid pipes, power lines, and a long-abandoned scampy nest made of tiny scraps of uniform. Then the largest one looks up at the others and her eyes widen. Scatter! They dive in opposite directions and dodge the massive figure that lands right where they all once were. The enormous, fur-covered frame of the Lopen stands up on her hind legs and looks around at them all and grins. Freeze, intruder! I don't know how you got in here, but you are immediately under arrest. The Lopen turns away from her, and a second form drops from the roof paneling. It doesn't land, though, just hangs there by his feet as a Sonier slowly matches her gaze and stares right at her. So, want to give up? It'll be a lot less painful if you just give up here and now. Trust me, you don't want to be her plaything. Nightwing says, and Ace crouches down and flicks him in the side of the head. Now! They all shout out at once and their weapons fire. Thudding sounds as coil rounds impact them both and then just fall to the ground. Yeah, sorry, it's a little gross, but we know you like to use coil weapons. So they're handled, and Nightwings begins to say before catching the literally military shifting in their grips on the weapons. He and his sister dive away and away from blasts of plasma launching through where they were and start to move. The thin layer of bright forest mold may absorb kinetic impacts with ease, but is nearly helpless against the heat. They go for laser sidearms and Nightwings twists through the air, rolls to switch his profile and grabs the nearest Vishanian before kicking her in the massive throat. The transfer of energy throws her head back and slams it against the wall with enough force to knock her out. He tucks his legs in under him and kicks off the wall to launch himself at the next nearest Vishanian rebel. Ace is moving herself. Having ducked down, she transfers flawlessly to sprinting on all fours and bodily tackles a Vishani hand, then rises up so fast she forces the weapons away with her sheer mass and slams her head back into the nearest wall. A quick grab of the weapons and she throws them hard at another, and the instinct to shield herself with her own weapons causes a clattering that Ace uses to launch herself at the last one. Ace and Nightwing slam into their final opponents at the same time and it's already over. Nightwings turns around and waves at the camera. Hey Drac, let them see this. We're distractions, remember. Should I let them see that too? Drac asks. Actually, yes. Knowing we're distractions as we hit their patrols can and will drive them more and more insane, and they still have to watch us either way. Nightwing says, and there's a laugh from Drac. Yeah. It's good to see that we're learning from our new friends so much. Harold's fun to be around, if a little exhausting. Hey, thanks, Harold says in the background of the call. Scene change. Admiral Bleed. Admiral Bleed grits her teeth at the mere sight of things. Two strangers, aliens that had never before breathed Arc-ship air, are befouling it with their presence. All forces, this is Admiral Bleed. We have elite enemy combatants presence. Form up in squads of 10 at minimum. Hoods out. Remain cloaked at all times. I repeat, remain cloaked at all times. Then her personal computer bugs out and she blinks at it. Then a window opens and the image of a Sonier man glaring at her pops up. Your code is complete shit, Drac states outright. Who the hell are you? I'm the man that owns your systems now. And by God, woman, were you trying to make the most inefficient, impractical, and buggy code out there? This is outright insulting. It's a miracle you don't get random cycles of carbon monoxide in your atmospherics with this mess. I'm locking out you and every barely computer literal madwoman out of this mess until I'm done cleaning it up before it kills everyone. You're what? Fixing your mess. I was just getting control of this system, but it's so bad I have to do something about this madness. Screw you, screw your programmers, and if I wasn't too busy fixing this mess, I'd fly over there and beat the ever-loving tar out of your programmers. You're blaming me? No, but you're the only acceptable target. Miss launches a coup at the worst possible time. I can at least tell that you're the type of stupid that would do or condone this madness. So screw you. Then her screen turns black and refuses to turn to a defragmentation progress bar. It's at 2% and not moving up. Scene change. Vishanian rebels, primary forces. They had gathered into as large a group as possible and were about to break away in proper-sized groups of 10. 250 Vishanian ready for battle and all gathered in a single mess hall before partitioning off. Then the lights go out and the doors at opposite ends start to open. "Rejoice, for terrible things are about to happen," a voice says grimly. "And brother accused me of melodrama," another says in a clipped tone as the opening doors reveal a single senior man in each of them, one wielding a pair of pistols and looking down, even with his ears up, and taking in all sound. The other Sonier is holding an enormous curved sword, his hand on the handle even as the tip is balanced upon the deck plating. More a warning. "Now then, time for fun," Todd states, and then his hands snap up and screams start. The sheer weight of bodies in the relatively closed-in area means only a fraction of them can bring their weapons up. And as Hafid and Todd wade into the mass, the sheer numbers reveals another problem. If anyone fires, they're going to hit friendlies. The entire massive crowd has turned into its own hostage as one Sonier drops multiple girls with each swing, and the other is revealing that he has expanded magazines on his weapons with stun rounds. Scene change. Admiral bleed. She turns and lashes out as a hand falls upon her shoulder. Her attack is deflected instantly by a swat from Brutality and a deeply unimpressed look on his face. "This is your last chance to walk to Admiral Longitude," Brutality says, and Bleed narrows her eyes. "Who do you think you're talking to?" she demands. "A fool. I am a veteran of more missions than you can understand, and with what I have learned, what I have done," Bleed says even as her hood opens and she vanishes from sight. Then the sound of tearing fabric as Brutality hears her body expand, muscles harden, and skin grow tougher and more reinforced. There are further flickers of Axiom as armor and weapon is summoned onto her person through implanted beacons that are designed to go through the change with her, and by the time the sheer mass of her being starts to overwhelm her natural stealth, she's the size of a bull Canador and wearing armor that was clearly cobbled together from shattered Crimson Hewer armor. A flex of her arms and Grindblade swords erupt from the wrists. Brutality's eyes narrow, and he rolls his shoulders and takes a stronger stance. "Very well then, let's do this," Brutality states calmly. OOCS, Into a Wider Galaxy, Part 419. Under a pastel hood, he was just considering how foolish it was to give up her stealth for size and strength when she swings at him at a speed that returns her stealth to her through sheer movement. Her hood's abilities still blur her position, and if not for his Sonier hearing, he would have been killed. But he is a Sonier, and not only a Sonier, but a swift and well-practiced one. Her swings are surgically precise, each one aimed to take the grind blades through a crippling blow, but not to kill. She wants him helpless, but not dead, which is interesting. "What is your plan?" he asks as he sidesteps an attempt to divest him of his left wing. He avoids the backswing of the grind blade. It doesn't matter if you meet the front, back, or side of these blades. They're rasps that cut and tear from every angle. Even poking it gently will bleed him and do gruesome damage to his fingertip. She doesn't answer him. She's focused and purposeful. He needs to break that first, and the best way to do that is to damage the armor, show her that all things have limitations, and then prove it beyond any shadow of doubt. Armor, by its nature, restricts. It's just a fact of things. Anything that can take a blow for you is by definition not part of you. And if you are carrying something that is not yourself, then it will get in your way, even if the hindrance is negligible. It's always there. Despite being cobbled together, the armor is very well made. She has full extension on her arms and nearly full range when crossing. Nearly. Unfortunately, that nearly means she has more than enough to get him if he were to latch himself or a device onto the front of her armor. He dives to the side as he feels a swell in Axiom he recognizes, and as a portion of the armor that was blurred to hearing and sight reveals itself and launches an impact detonating piece. The sheer sound batters into him as he avoids the shrapnel and makes him hear quadruple with the sheer amount of echoes in the closed-in area. Too much sound. She's trying to deafen him. He dodges shot after shot as he focuses his Axiom into his ears to reinforce the fragile membrane, bones and more. The pain of the sheer sound fades and dulls, but the sound doesn't. She's been paying attention and switches tactics. A plasma launcher teleports into her left hand, and she activates it. It's in a stream mode, and the room fills with burning death. He's more than skilled enough to resist it. Then shifts as her goal was to make the environment go runny, to use the sheer heat to distort sight and sound even more, while forcing him to use more and more axiom, splitting his focus. Despite himself, he cannot stop his lips from pulling back in a smile. Smart, he compliments as he pushes down the sheer battle lust. He prefers to keep it under control. But you don't make a living hunting down criminals and beating them up without some kind of love for combat and clashing wills. He can protect himself and his clothing from the sheer heat, but the slag starting to drip from the ceiling is an annoyance. Scene change, the Vishanian rebels. They had scattered enough that they could attack without hitting one another, and some of the braver souls were even taking pot shots at them, regardless of the risk to each other. Hafid swing shocks several Vishanyan, even as he adjusts the current. He's trying to stun and shock them, not induce arrhythmia. There are cries of pain as Todd's pistols fire on the hands and weapons of the surrounding Vishanyan. Unlike Hafid, whose every swing leaves someone twitching, staggering, or collapsing, Todd is disarming and breaking weapons as he tosses people around into one another for maximum confusion and consternation. Both men generally prefer more permanent solutions to their problems, but the rule for this one was no killing, and therefore they couldn't simply end the issue. Heavy boots crunch down on weapons and things break as Todd's sweeping strikes strike weapons from the hands of others. He uses 2 fingers to grab the armor of one Vishanyan and sweeps them around and use her own armor to block a few shots. It's not enough to pierce the armor of his new shield, and a quick kick launches her directly at the attacker to crash into her. Then things get more complicated as Ace and Nightwings rush in from the vents above, and Todd falters for a moment as he sees Nightwings go for the throat. Literally. Their biology reinforces the necks. You can hit them here as hard as you do on the torso, and the whiplash can help knock them out. Nightwings explains, even as Ace straight up races into a cluster and then rises up from the massive pile she had made before grabbing one of them by the ankle and using her as a bludgeon to knock a series of weapons out of their owner's hands. Todd snaps out with a wing and catches a Vishanyan rebel in the neck. But the girls, while in a bad situation, are not amateurs. She had heard Nightwing's advice and controls her neck to prevent whiplash. Not working, Todd remarks mildly as he uses the fact that she still lowered her head a bit by reflex to launch himself upwards just a bit and kick her in the jaw. In her glass jaw as she goes down. There is the sound of an explosion echoing through the ship, then several others. Dad's having his fun. Sounds like Miss Traitor Admiral is making a fight of it. Nightwing says, even as another form joins the fray with a large staff telescoping from his hands. Axiom markings along it give the combat staff a huge weight that causes Drax every swing to scatter people like twigs. Think this will be like the time he used music and native animals to fight against a giant combat mech? Drax asks as he shows he's completely caught up. That was a weird one. Still, it was fun to go low-tech for a while, Nightwing says. Low-tech, my wing. That whole stupid end to everything still required me to plug directly into a tertiary computer core and start eating up more RAM than the system could handle before we could actually do anything to that monstrosity. Drax states as he outright shatters several weapons with his staff and then pulls out and throws a bola that ties several Vishanyan necks together. And seriously, stop being so gentle. I had the time to better study their anatomy. These necks are nowhere near as fragile as other species' necks. They're more akin to a proportionately large snake's body, just a bit more flexible and vulnerable, but not by much. There's a gagging sound as Ace takes that as a suggestion to grab a pair of Vishanyan by the necks and turning fast to slam them into the others. Scene change. Admiral bleed and brutality. There are more unused weapons mounted along the long neck, turning whatever direction she happens to be facing into a massive field of death. From the echoes and his own familiarity with weapons, he can deduce that she has the full payload of laser, plasma, rail, and coil kinetics. With what appears to be explosive rounds from the coil and supersonic slugs from the rail. The real problem is the damnable grind blades. She's stayed precise, calculating, nearly surgical in her attempts to delimb him. However, her own attempts to burn him out and destroy him that way means that things can be changed to his advantage. The room only has so much stability, and she will want to avoid damaging the ship. Trying to use her to cut the important lines in the area is useless. She's refusing to overextend her attacks and cause unnecessary damage to the environment, which is almost absurd with the sheer damage the plasma has caused the room. However, the rail shot from her neck-mounted cannons had revealed that the room is directly above a loading bay, complete with numerous small ships. He ensures that she's looking directly into his eyes as he withdraws a simple pallet of chemicals and tosses it. The moment it leaves his protective field, it combusts and detonates into a blast of thick smoke that adheres to and solidifies over glass, partially blinding her sensors even as he then dodges several rail shot, a swing of the grind blade, and then slams a foot into the ground to buckle the weakened floor and then force it open as he forces his way down. She follows and lands softly as small jets break her fall. The turning of the armor's head shows that he's confused her. Then the powerful beams physically scan the area in wide sweeps, visible curtains of green that sweep in a circle. "Do you honestly think that my ships will give you shelter?" she demands as the mounted weapons on all vessels start warming up and further scanning beams start sweeping the area. "But there is. I think that letting you dictate what kind of fight we're having is a bad idea. You're clearly smart enough to rig the game well. But how do you respond when the table is flipped?" his voice asked from on the top of an underslung laser turret on a nearby transport shuttle. "Gambling metaphors? Is that how you won your fortune?" she asked, trying to get a grip on her opponent. He wasn't all that verbose, but he was clearly thinking clearly, and if she could just get some insight into his mind. "You certainly changed the topic quickly," Brutality notes. "Tell me, how did you get those grind blades? Did you get caught swiping them, then use them as you were confronted?" "Why should I tell you anything? Why wouldn't you?" "I would rather not feed into whatever mind game you're playing," she says as she finds a small device he's speaking out of and crushes it. Then the back of her armor detonates as a small bomb reveals itself only as it explodes. She slams into the shuttle and the sheer force knocks it out of her way with an ungodly screech and has it collide with another ship and disrupt the sensor pattern. The beam of the second shuttle turns red for a moment, and it opens fire against a far wall. But Brutality has already vacated the area and is once again dodging scanning beams. Seeing this, Admiral Bleed takes one of the ship's turned turret and heaves it into a wild spin that knocks into several more. Numerous beams turn red, but she swears inside her armor before engaging the thrusters to dodge the massive barrage of plasma, laser, and coil shot that goes through where she was moments ago. Good reaction time. Brutality compliments her from a newly revealed device that's between the treads of her armor. "I understand you now." "Do you? You overwhelm your opponents with shocking, sudden, and likely unwarranted violence. Take what was useful and use it to get even more powerful. You rely on your natural stealth, but aren't a stealthy person. You're the armor pilot, the heavy gunner. The stealth is just something that, as a Vishanian, you're geared towards." "Congratulations for noticing the blatantly obvious," she says as she activates several of the ships, and without pausing their scans for him, has them open up the area behind her. Several scanning sweeps go red as Brutality moves fast and unseen to avoid the barrage, and then is gone again. "Tell me, why do you even care about all this? Are you some kind of professional pain in the scale? Or is this just some kind of fetish? I understand that much of the galaxy can redefine the term deviant from one person to the next. Much the same could be asked of you, dividing your people for the sake of your ambitions? Because you don't feel recognized. If that was what you wanted, you should have pushed for a mandatory vacation or retirement where you could put the other admirals out of duty and move then. You think I didn't consider that? I ran out of..." Bleed begins and stops herself. "No, you get nothing," she says before moving to spin one of the ships again. And then the airlock door opens without a protective barrier and the atmosphere is pulled out, and she sets her own scanners toward the door, even while the pressure continues. There is a dissolving axiom effect and numerous remote speakers sucked out into the vast nothingness. Outside, the Ark ships and some of the shuttles even scrape along the floor before the atmosphere runs out and everything goes still to match the muted silence of the void. The scans continue, green beams sweep the cargo bay from dozens of angles and find nothing. He's still effectively invisible, still in the damn docking bay, and apparently the Batman can breathe in space. Great. OOCS into a wider galaxy, part 420. Under a pastel hood. Without sound transferring, he's not trying to taunt her, and is clearly capable of movement and easy shifting through the void. The sound of her own footsteps transferring through the suit is nearly deafening, and she scans the area as best she can, and then rubs at the paint caked onto her suit's sensors. Whatever he had used in that chemical bomb had bonded to it in such a way to interfere with everything. Her scans were only at half power, and she was forced to rely on the less easily controlled ships. She could only set them to sweep the area, and couldn't have them just follow her every suspicion. She likely would already have the flappy wretch if she could do that. Then comes the sensation, the feeling of when a weapon is pointed directly at you. She listens to instinct, coils her neck forwards and dives to roll as cleanly as she can in the clunky armor. The sensors on her suit inform her of the plasma burst that goes through where she was standing and destroys the scanning equipment on another ship. He's subverting the vessels. The bastard. She doesn't even bother scanning at the ship that fired. He's a slippery bastard that always moves. The last place he'd be is the last place he's been, which is why she can only barely dodge the next shot from the same place. The scan comes up empty. Right, okay then, reactive. Not pattern-based. He's not always moving as a style of stealth. He's moving as stealth requires. Damn it. Scene change. Loyalist headquarters. Vishan space. That's pretty impressive. The man has got us be damn tricky. That's the smart move, Harold notes to the Vishan hacker. She wasn't the best for programming, but an upside of having so much bloat in Vishan systems was that she could speed read through code at a truly impressive rate. Practice makes perfect after all. Is it? She challenges him. Of course, he's a bounty hunter. Containing damage and potential harm are a big part of his expected duties. They're the step between calling in the army to deal with a criminal issue and damn the collateral and police making an arrest. Which means he has to keep the harm low, which means that he has to be careful and controlled in his actions. Otherwise, too much harm is caused, and they may as well have called in the army instead of a bounty hunter. She finishes. Correct. Can you tell where he is? She asks him. I cannot. The camera doesn't transfer all the little tells I use for observation, but I can tell you that he's got about 5 places he's moving between to stay out of sensor detection range. The reason the fight is still going on is that none of those places are close enough to bleed or have a clear enough line of sight for him to attack her. So he's waiting for an opportunity. He's running out the clock because he knows reinforcements are coming, and he's valuing minimizing damage. That said, if she starts to leave, she's going to leave herself open. I see now, the Vishan begins to say before the sorcerers bring more people into things, and Harold turns with a smile. Excuse me, Harold says as he walks away, and she watches him go to embrace velocity as she steps forward from the group, and looks around at the sheer amount of activity and movement as aliens in Vishan space help them. Rain, for her part, dashes off before anyone can say anything, and alongside conclusive end to all, starts speaking with several other Vishan that she's clearly very close with. Welcome to Vishan Space Girls. We've got 2 different fights on 2 different screens, one a battle of wits, and the other a massive mosh pit, Harold says. Harold, is this really happening? The Empress of the Epoch on her way now? Velocity asks him in a concerned tone. We have undaunted sorcerers with her. They're keeping me up to date. She is incoming with all the force of an approaching apocalypse. How do I save my people? She demands. Just hold tight. I'm working with the Loyalists, and we have 2 of the 3 rebel leaders, with the 3rd thoroughly distracted by brutality. Admiral Duty and Longitude are taking control of the other Ark ships, with Admiral Bombard and Fallows getting undecided soldiers to simply sit down and relax. Things are nearly wrapped up already. Oh, that's almost a pity. I am ready to fight for my people, for my Admiral. Excuse me, a Vishanyan asks, and Velocity turns to her. She doesn't know this one. Can I help you? Your calculated velocity of victory, right? She asks. I am. Is something wrong? Are you... The Vishanyan pauses before looking down. Are you pregnant? I am. It's too early to show yet, but scans show the child is healthy. So far, Velocity says. So far? The child is, larger than expected. Considerably so. But still far from the fastest conceptions in the galaxy. Several species would have already laid an egg, and we would have about a month until they hatch. To say nothing of stranger circumstances, Harold says, putting his hand on Velocity's shoulder to offer comfort. Stranger? The Vishanyan asks. There are some species with unusual reproduction methods. The Floric use their advanced regeneration to self-mutilate and have their old body develop a new mind while they grow a new body. The Orhanas have a third, immortal and non-sapient gender that will occasionally break off newborn Orhanas, Harold explains. So what are you thinking might be happening? The Vishanyan asks. I don't know. The Vishanyan DNA isn't fully understood. You can sequence it, but understanding what part of the code does what is still a mystery. There's no way to point to one part or another and say this governs reproduction. Because of that, there may be modifications on your reproductive methods. Do you have suspicions? The child is larger than expected. Granted, we're using the MIAC baseline. They're part of your DNA structure, the largest part. But from what we can tell, it's causing no harm to velocity, meaning this is likely not unusual. Could you just say what you're suspecting? I think that my Vishanyan daughter might very well the first one born, Harold says plainly. How fast do MIAC reproduce? It takes a year between conception, laying, and hatching. If velocity is any example, then you have a month from conception to hatching at this rate, which is a quarter of the time it takes for a MIAC. If that keeps up, then we have another 2 months and change until I see my child. And how will you know? If the egg starts forming soon, then she's on the schedule of an accelerated MIAC birth, Harold explains. You're rather detached about this. That's because there's little I can do. I am worried, very worried, but being panicked isn't going to actually help. So I push it out and push past it so I can help when it comes to the things I can help, Harold says. Now, how about your name, miss? You're clearly quite concerned with the idea of APOC motherhood. Are you worried about possible complications or curious for other reasons? Well, a bit of both. I am gentle care for the wounded. I wanted to be a medic, but I don't have the aptitude for it. But, well, Gentle starts to say, before bending her neck to look at Velocity's stomach. I want one. Well, so do I, Velocity says with a slight smile. Aw, isn't it adorable? Jabber teases from Winifred's shoulder. I'm not entirely sure why we're all here. I don't think I can help much with this, Winifred notes. That's the point. We're putting in so much that no one will know what is going on. Does that include you? Jabber asks. Oh, I know what's going on, and what's going on is that what forces are watching us have no idea what the plan is. In fact, no one does. The plan is there is no plan, Winifred asks. What? Agatha asks. In this situation, what we have to do is make things too confusing, too unusual, and too varied for everyone but two groups. The Loyalist Admiralty and the Empress of Serbo. Everyone else, both the rebels and others potentially waiting to cause problem sides, will be too busy trying to piece together the endless amount of possibilities I've brought in. Allowing the Admiralty to honorably surrender to the Empress and ensure a peace between the two people, effectively sating the bloodlust of the Apuk and having it turn into sponsorship for the Vishanyan, Harold explains. Speaking of, we need a bit more. Ardan Karm, think you can get your pop idol friends here? You want to throw a concert? The flabbergasted sorcerer demands. The Vishanyan were introduced to us during a concert. Why not finish the introductions with one? You're crazy. Good, let's get this situation as crazy as me, and we can really steer it into a better tomorrow. A concert? Velocity asks as Giria just gapes at him for a moment, then thinks, wait, too many variables. You're using raw chaos as a massive smokescreen. Correct. Our opponents are trying to seize control, and while taking control can be difficult, Losing it is easy, and making someone else lose it is almost as simple. Bleed is too busy fighting, as are her forces. The five flies are here to draw the eye of anyone else that might want to try something, Harold says before thinking. Say, did the Venak Nebula adepts ever get a chance to really show what they can do with the nebula stuff in their system? It does increase axiom abilities, and having them show off all over the place would really grab some attention. Is it strange that this makes total sense to me? Winifred asks. It just means you're fitting in just fine, big girl, Javra says cheerfully. Scene change. Rebel forces, Vishan space. His hand snaps to the side and deflects the rifle. The payload still launches and careens into an unintended target. The armor saves her life, but even when wearing full armor, the sheer kinetic force of coil shot can still send someone flying. To say nothing of the lovely bruises and potential broken bones. Still better than a chunk of metal going clean through you. Or worse, as these bullets keep doing, shattering inside against your organs and bones to continue to cause horrifying harm. Humans call them hollow point bullets. Having them in tri-tight and just shy of supersonic is a problem. Thankfully, their family keeps reinforced, low-profile armor on. But the totems they use to harden the air on top of simply being stupidly strong armor plates and padding don't help with tri-tight, meaning far less effective than normal. So quick questions, girls. Todd asks to draw attention to himself as Ace stumbles a bit. How many normal people do you think you can take? Assuming that maybe 1 in 10 can see through your stealth at least part way. You know, like how we can all hear you, or how Ace can smell you too, or how the Nagasha and Urthani and Dren all have different senses that won't be fooled by your hoods. There is, of course, no answer beyond the cries of the Vishanyan trying to organize enough to knock them around. They are starting to get it, though. Dragging away the wounded and knocked out has thinned the numbers, and they're getting bolder and bolder with their weapons. About half of the primary forces are already departing the area, and the rest are wisely spreading out. They're also tag-teaming. As Todd shoots at one, he has to duck under a shot, and they're starting to track him as he dodges. They're learning. They've weeded out those that don't understand the flow of things and are now left with those with either luck or competence. And it can be hard to tell which one's more dangerous. Scene change. Admiral Bleed, Vishanyan space. The boom of the bay doors is entirely psychosomatic. There's not enough atmosphere to actually project the sound, and the hissing that follows is not psychosomatic. The bay is quickly filled with atmosphere. A quick ping to the ship's systems lets her know that it was all automated. Nothing unusual, and there was the traditional snarl of Vishanyan code. It had been humbling to learn on her missions out that her own people were subpar coders, and the only benefits to their digital abilities was the fact it was so overly complicated it would slow down and frustrate hostile parties. But it also made the code distinctive. She had fought off several digital attacks in the past, and most coders couldn't help themselves but try and solve the issues, as the hacker that had the main systems under control had proven. And while it was frustrating that the whole of the ship wasn't responding, the subsystems in this bay were still not being corrected. So I'm rather curious, why are you doing this? Really? Ambition? Being known? There has to be something deeper than that. Something that motivates everything you've accomplished. You're too blood-covered, too much for it to simply be a desire to be remembered. There is nothing else, she states as Tisea locates the speaker he's using. A quick laser beam destroys it. She turns as she hears something clink and finds a new speaker has revealed itself adhered by magnet to the wall. Really, nothing else? Brutality asks through it. Nothing, she asserts. I understand now. You're a sociopath, and this is the only thing you ascribe actual value to. It doesn't matter if I am or not, she notes even as she mentally scoffs. If he wants to go down the wrong path, then he's free to. She knows she's not a sociopath. She's taken the tests. Perhaps she has narcissistic tendencies, but not a sociopathic ones.